Welcome to the second episode of CreepyPasta Corner. Make sure to like and subscribe for more like this and much more. Now enjoy. Emergency alert.
It started with a loud, shrill tone, the kind that instantly throws your body into panic mode. My phone vibrated so violently that it tumbled off the nightstand and clattered onto the wooden floor. The sound sliced through the silence of my darkened room, yanking me out of sleep so fast that my heart felt like it was slamming against my ribs. My ears were ringing, my breath was uneven, and for a split second I thought I was dreaming. But the glow of my phone screen, stark against the darkness, told me this was real. I knew that sound. It was the emergency alert system, the one usually reserved for extreme weather warnings, amber alerts, or national security threats. My mind raced through the possibilities. An earthquake, a storm, something urgent. But as I grabbed my phone with trembling fingers, my groggy brain struggled to make sense of what I was seeing. Emergency. Alert. Do not sleep. This is not a test. Do not fall asleep under any circumstances. Stay awake until further notice. The bold red letters glared at me, the message burning itself into my brain. My first reaction was confusion. Do not sleep. What kind of alert was this? My mind scrambled for an explanation. A prank, a system glitch, maybe even some bizarre government drill. My vision was still blurry from being yanked out of sleep, but I forced myself to focus on the time at the top of my screen, 2:43 a.m. Before I could even process the first message, another alert flashed across my screen, the same piercing sound making my whole body jolt. Repeat, do not sleep, they are present. A cold shiver crawled down my spine, slow and suffocating. They are present? The words made my stomach twist with unease. Who were they? I sat up straighter in bed, my pulse thundering in my ears. My apartment was still, wrapped in that eerie, suffocating silence that only exists in the dead of night. The only sound was the low hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. I quickly checked my phone for more details. News updates, emergency broadcasts, anything that could explain what was happening. But there was nothing, no reports, no social media posts, just that warning. I wanted to believe this was some elaborate hoax, but something about it felt wrong. It wasn't just the message itself. It was the way my body reacted to it, like an unspoken instinct was telling me to listen. Then I heard it, a sound, faint at first but undeniable, a wet dragging noise. It came from outside my bedroom door. I froze mid-breath, my entire body locking up. It was slow, deliberate, unnatural, like something heavy being pulled across the floor, but with a sickening, sticky quality that made my skin crawl. My apartment wasn't big. I lived alone in a small one-bedroom unit on the third floor. There shouldn't have been anyone else inside. For a moment, I considered calling out, asking if someone was there. But something inside me screamed not to. My body tensed, my heart hammering so loud I swore whoever, or whatever, was outside could hear it. I reached for my bedside lamp out of habit, but my fingers hesitated over the switch. If someone, or something, had broken in, turning on the light might alert them that I was awake. My throat was dry as I slowly pulled my hand back and instead reached for my phone, gripping it like a lifeline. I slid out of bed, careful to keep my movements slow, controlled. My bare feet barely made a sound against the floor as I crept toward the door. The dragging noise had stopped. I strained my ears, waiting, listening. Nothing. For a moment, I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Maybe it was the pipes, or the neighbors upstairs moving furniture. Maybe I was still groggy and my brain was playing tricks on me. I exhaled, trying to calm myself. Then my phone vibrated again. Another alert. If you hear them, do not open your door. Do not let them know you are awake. My entire body went cold. Them. The word burned into my mind, twisting into something far more terrifying than just a vague warning. My stomach lurched, my hands trembling as I took a step back from the door. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know who or what they were. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't about to test the warning. Moving as quietly as I could, I locked my bedroom door and shoved a chair under the handle. My breaths came in short, ragged bursts as I backed up, my legs finally giving out as I sank onto the bed. My heart was slamming against my ribs, my body rigid with fear. One thing was certain. I wasn't going to sleep now, even if I wanted to. A soft knock broke the silence. It wasn't loud or hurried, just a gentle, deliberate tap against the wall. But even that small sound sent a spike of panic through me. My entire body tensed, my fingers tightening around my phone. My front door remained closed, untouched. That wasn't where the knock had come from. No, it had come from the wall. My neighbor's apartment was right next to mine, separated only by a thin layer of drywall and insulation. The knock had come from his side. The realization made my skin prickle with unease. It wasn't some random noise from the building settling or pipes shifting. It was intentional. Someone was trying to get my attention. I didn't answer. For a moment, silence stretched between us. My mind raced, torn between dread and curiosity. Then finally I heard his voice. Muffled through the wall, but unmistakably human. "Hey," he said, his tone hushed but urgent. "You awake?" My throat was dry. I hesitated, my pulse hammering, before forcing out a whisper. "Yeah." "Did you get the alert?" I swallowed hard. "Yeah." A pause. Then, quieter now, almost as if he was afraid someone, or something, might overhear. "You know what's going on?" "No clue," I admitted. My voice was barely more than a breath. Another pause. Then, with an edge of fear creeping into his tone, he said, "But I think there's something in my apartment." A chill swept over me, deep and immediate, like someone had emptied a bucket of ice water over my head. My fingers curled so tightly around my phone that my knuckles ached. "What do you mean?" I whispered. "I heard something," he said, in my living room. His breathing was uneven, shallow, like footsteps, but not normal. I felt my stomach tighten. Not normal how? There was a long pause, and when he spoke again, his voice was almost too soft to hear. Dragging. Slow. I squeezed my eyes shut. The exact same noise I had heard outside my own bedroom door. The same wet, deliberate dragging sound. My pulse roared in my ears. I locked myself in my room. He continued, "I don't know what to do." I flicked my gaze back to my phone screen, rereading the warnings. Do not sleep. Do not wake them. The words felt heavier now, more sinister. I swallowed past the lump in my throat. "Did you see anything?" Silence. A long, uneasy silence that stretched too far, filling me with an unbearable dread. My mind ran wild with the possibilities. What was he seeing? Why wasn't he answering? Then finally, he whispered, "I think my roommate fell asleep." A sinking, suffocating feeling settled in my stomach. "He's in the other room," he continued, his voice barely more than a breath. I heard him snoring, and then... He trailed off. My fingers trembled. Then what? "The sound?" he said, and I could hear the raw fear in his voice. It changed. My breath caught in my throat. Changed how? Another pause. I could hear his breathing on the other side of the wall, rapid and unsteady. "Like breathing," he finally said, but wrong. Too deep. Too wet. A violent shudder rippled down my spine. My fingers clenched around my phone so hard my nails dug into my palm. I wanted to tell him it was nothing, that it was just his imagination, but I knew that wasn't true. I knew because I felt the same choking dread creeping through my veins. Then another alert came through. My phone vibrated so hard it nearly slipped from my grasp. If someone has fallen asleep, they are no longer. Them do not let them out. I sucked in a sharp breath, my entire body locking up. I nearly dropped my phone as a fresh wave of panic surged through me. My heart pounded so violently I thought it might give me away. Thought whatever was lurking might hear it. Then through the wall I heard a new sound, a deep guttural wheezing. It was slow and rattling, thick with something wet and clogged, like a body struggling to suck in air through lungs filled with liquid. It wasn't normal breathing. It wasn't human breathing. My neighbor whimpered, a raw, choked sound of pure terror. "Oh, God," he whispered. "It's at my door." Then came the scratching, long, slow drags of fingernails, or something worse, against wood. I pressed my ear to the wall, barely breathing. Every muscle in my body was locked up, tense, like I was made of stone. I told myself I just needed to hear what was happening, to confirm that this wasn't some nightmare or my imagination running wild. But the moment my skin touched the cold surface, I regretted it. The wheezing grew louder. It was thick, wet, rattling through something that barely seemed capable of holding air. It came in uneven bursts, dragging in a breath too deep, exhaling with a sickly shudder. But now there was something else. A new sound, clicking. Soft at first, like fingernails tapping against wood, then sharper, more deliberate, like someone, or something, was flexing stiff joints, cracking bones into place. And then I felt it. Something pressed against the other side of the wall. A shape, solid, tall, a head. My stomach turned to ice. It was right there, inches away from me. I jerked back so fast I nearly fell. My skin crawled as if something invisible had brushed against me, and my entire body recoiled in disgust. I didn't want to know what was standing there. I didn't want to know what was breathing so close to me. Through the wall, my neighbor was still whispering frantically, his voice shaking with panic. "It's trying to open my door," he said, his words barely more than a breath. "It knows I'm in here." A heavy thud rattled the wall. I flinched. Then another. It wasn't just knocking, it was ramming the door. Hard. I clenched my fists, my pulse hammering so fast it felt like my chest would burst. My mind screamed at me to do something, but what? I didn't even know what we were dealing with. A home invasion? A hallucination? Something worse? Then my phone vibrated violently in my hands. Another alert. Do not interact with them. Do not speak to them. They are not who they were. A wave of nausea rolled over me. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to accept what that message was saying, but deep down, I already knew. This wasn't just some emergency drill. This wasn't a joke. Whatever was in my neighbor's apartment, it wasn't human anymore. His whisper came again, even more desperate now. "I think I can make a run for it," he said. His breath hitched. "I can get to your place." "No," I hissed, cutting him off. My fingers gripped my phone so hard they ached. "Don't." The alert says. A loud crack shattered the air. I jolted. His door had splintered. The noise that followed made my blood run cold. A step. A wet, sickening step. Like something heavy, something drenched in fluid, had stepped into his room. My neighbor inhaled sharply. Then silence. A long, horrible, suffocating silence. I pressed my knuckles to my mouth, biting back the urge to call his name, to do anything. But I didn't move. I barely even breathed. Then, just when I thought the quiet was worse than the noise, a click right against the wall. My stomach twisted into knots, and then I heard him, breathing. But it wasn't him anymore. I sat frozen on my bed, my phone clutched so tightly in my hands that my fingers had gone numb. My body felt like it wasn't even mine anymore, as if I had turned into something hollow, something incapable of movement. Every part of me screamed to run, to hide, to do something, but all I could do was sit there, paralyzed. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The wheezing breath on the other side of the wall filled the silence, slow and rattling, thick with something wet. Each inhale dragged in too much air, too deep, too unnatural. Each exhale was worse, like it was forcing something wrong out of its lungs. Then, my phone vibrated again. The sound, even muffled, felt deafening in the silence. My stomach twisted as I forced my gaze down to the screen. Do not make noise. Do not let them know you are awake. A sharp jolt of panic shot through me. My breathing hitched as I turned off the screen, plunging my room into darkness once more. My entire body ached from how tense I was. I pressed my lips together, forcing my breath to slow, to quiet. Then, the breathing moved away from the wall. My stomach dropped. It wasn't leaving. It was moving toward my door. Soft, shuffling footsteps brushed against the floor, dragging ever so slightly, just enough to make my skin crawl. My ears strained to track every sound, every pause. The footsteps stopped just outside my bedroom. Then, a single gentle knock. I thought my heart had stopped beating. Then a voice. My neighbor's voice. Hey, you awake? The exact same tone. The exact same way he had spoken to me through the wall. If I hadn't known any better, I would have answered, but I did know better. It wasn't him. I squeezed my eyes shut, pressing my hand over my mouth to stop any sound from slipping out. My body trembled violently. A second knock, louder this time. Hey, let me in. I could hear the wrongness in it now. The cadence was slightly off. The words lingered too long, stretching just a little too far. My fingers dug into my skin as I fought the urge to scream. I didn't answer. Then I heard the doorknob rattle, slowly, testing. A soft click, then another, like it was trying to see if I had been careless enough to leave it unlocked. My gaze flickered to the chair I had braced under the handle. My mind raced. Would it hold? The rattling stopped. Then a new noise, a long, dragging scrape. I bit down on my lips so hard I tasted blood. Something was being pulled down my hallway. Something heavy. The sound was slow, deliberate, stretching out in agonizing, unnatural intervals. My imagination ran wild with possibilities. What was it? What was it carrying? I forced myself to stay still. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to do something. Hide, run, push furniture against the door. But I knew better. I knew that any movement, any noise would let it know I was awake. Then my phone buzzed one final time. They can only stay until dawn. Do not let them in. Stay awake. I clamped a hand over my mouth, my shoulders shaking as silent tears welled in my eyes. So that was it. If I could just hold on, if I could just wait, they would leave. For the next few hours I listened. The thing outside my door never knocked again. It didn't call my name. It just waited. Every now and then I heard it shift. The soft, sickening wheeze of its breath. The faint clicking sounds like something moving wrong inside of it. Like it was adjusting itself, waiting for a chance, waiting for me to slip up. The night stretched on, endless and suffocating. I didn't dare check the time. I didn't dare move an inch. Then, just as the sky outside my window began to lighten, silence. I didn't move. I couldn't move. An hour passed. Then 2. Finally, when the sun was bright in the sky, when I could hear birds chirping and distant cars rumbling down the street, I forced myself to move. My entire body ached from staying in the same position for so long. My throat was dry, raw from holding back my breath. I moved the chair away from the door. My hands shook violently as I unlatched the lock. I hesitated. Then I opened the door. The hallway was empty, but on the floor, leading away from my door, were long, wet footprints. I stared at them, my breath caught in my throat. They stretched all the way down the hall, disappearing around the corner. I couldn't tell if they were barefoot or something else. The news had no answers. No one did. There were whispers online, forums, scattered social media posts. People were sharing the same experience, the same alert, the same warnings. Some people didn't make it. Some doors weren't strong enough, and some let them in. I don't know what happened to my neighbor. I never saw him again. I never heard him again. But I know one thing. Since that night, I don't sleep easily. And when I do, I always wake up to the sound of breathing, even when I'm alone.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. That was Emergency Alert, an original creepypasta written by Reddit user BriefTrainer6751. I'll link the story in the description if you want to check it out. Make sure to subscribe to the Midnyte Society for upcoming stories in the Creepypasta series, as well as other disturbing content. If you've got a story you'd like me to narrate, send a submission email to the address in the description of this video. Until next time, stay weird, stay wonderful.